Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new series. It's a new podcast series that we're doing from SMSF Trustee News, and we're labeling it the Trusted Trustee Podcast. And it will be a regular short podcast being done with myself, Darin Tyson-Chan, and Tracey Besters, who is joining me as well. And we're going to talk pretty much all things SMSF, but broken down into bite-sized pieces in doing so. And I just need to mention the sponsor. We have a great sponsor behind us for these podcasts. So this podcast is brought to you by Superfund Property Valuation, ATO compliance in a click. If your SMSF accountant or auditor is on your back for a property valuation, just order an affordable report from the experts with ease today, with the details on your screen now. Obviously, most relevant too, seeing that we're leading up to the 1st of July 2025, where that new Division 296 tax or the $3 million soft cap might come in, and valuations will be an absolutely hot topic. So good time to have a think about Superfund property valuations. Anyway, I'll get on to the podcast now, and I'd just like to welcome Tracey. I know I've introduced you just a while ago, but welcome anyway, and thank you for giving up your time to have a quick chat about all things SMSF.
Thanks, Darin, and thanks for having me on this podcast. I'm excited to be able to really focus on some issues that, focus points that trustees of SMSFs and members of SMSF should be thinking about, and to be able to just educate those people who have SMSFs on all things that they should be considering and all things for them.
Now, we're going to kick this whole process off with a fairly, what on the surface would appear to be a simple subject or a simple topic. We got a lot of questions about this at the SMSF Trustee Empowerment Day last year. And we tend to concentrate, or we have up until this date, concentrated about advising people, not advising people, but informing people how to get money into super. But a lot of the questions we got was actually about, well, how do I get my money out of super? So that's where we're going to start today. And I thought that we'd just start with the concept of reaching age 65 and being able to access your superannuation benefits there. How does that all work, Tracey?
Yeah, that's it's a great milestone, Darin, age 65, when you're talking about self-managed super funds in particular. And I think that there is a little bit of misunderstanding about what happens at age 65. So once we hit age 65, it's a magical age because it's an automatic condition of release. So in order to get money out of super, we've got to think about two things, or three things really, but two things to start with. The first is preservation age. So have we turned the right age in order to be able to even think about getting our money out under what we would call an ordinary or normal circumstance, being retirement? Age 65 is a magic age because we don't have to do anything more than turn age 65 in order to be able to access our benefits out of super. So the first thing is preservation age. The second thing is that condition of release. So age 65 is a condition of release. So as soon as we've hit age 65, we have an automatic ability to be able to start drawing down on our superannuation money, whether that is in specie or as a lump sum, whether that's an income stream, whatever that looks like. And I know we'll probably talk about that in a second. But age 65 is that automatic trigger, if you like. I have heard quite a lot of people have this misunderstanding that even if they are age 65, they think that they still have to then retire in order to be able to start accessing their superannuation. And that's not true. Once you hit age 65, you can still continue to work if you wanted to, continue to contribute to super, subject to all of the rules around contributions, but you can actually start drawing down on your superannuation benefits. So like I said, magic age 65.
I can say from my point of view, I'd like to retire at age 65. So yeah. I'd like those two to go hand in hand, if not earlier than age 65. So I don't know why some people think that they want to keep working after 65, but I'd happily ride into the sunset at age 65. Now, we talk about reaching these thresholds where you can get your hands or start to get your hands on your superannuation money. Now, traditionally, I suppose you could say, people start a pension to start drawing down their superannuation benefits, sort of, it can be at regular intervals, but it's almost to give them a regular source of income, a way to give them a structured regular source of income. But there's a little bit of misnomer with that too, isn't there, Tracey? That people get a little bit confused about switching from maybe what they're used to being accumulation phase of their SMSF into pension phase. Now, there's a little bit of confusion which needs to be clarified, I think.
Yeah, true, Darin. And I was just reading an actual question on a forum that I follow on Facebook, actually, around superannuation, only last week. And it was basically around, I'm at this age, I want to retire. Can I set up a new pension fund? And I think that's where the misnomer comes in, because when we contribute to super, those contributions go into what we call an accumulation account. When we actually start to draw down on our super, and if we start a pension, then we actually have this concept of commencing a pension account or a pension fund, but it's not a separate superannuation fund. It's not a separate SMSF. So if we've got one SMSF, we can have multiple accounts that sit within that one SMSF in our name. We'll have one accumulation account and only one accumulation account, but we can have multiple pension accounts or multiple pension funds, if you like. I've got clients with half a dozen pension funds because of the tax components that sit within those pension funds, or pension accounts, I should say. So I think that the misnomer is that you're not actually commencing a new superannuation fund. It is still sitting in your SMSF. On paper, you're going to be showing that your classification of your money sitting in superannuation is between various accumulation or pension accounts. So that's on paper. It's not a separate bank account. It's not a separate asset per se, unless we go down the path of talking about segregation, which we don't have time for today. Maybe that's another podcast, Darin, we can do in the future. But it's not a separate fund. You don't have to set up anything new within your SMSF. There is some paperwork involved, which your financial advisor or administrator will handle for you, but it is still sitting in the same SMSF. The assets that are funding either the accumulation side or the retirement phase side, the pension side, can be the same assets, and there's just a split between the two. So I think it's important to know that whatever you can do from an investment perspective in the accumulation side, you can do that once you start a pension as well. You don't have to sell down all of your assets or your investments in accumulation to start the pension. You can start the pension anyway. There's not much that takes place, practically speaking, when you go into that pension or retirement phase.
Yeah, and probably one of the reasons why that's the most common way for people to start to access their superannuation savings is that once you start that pension account, you get exempt current pension income, and all of a sudden the tax treatment is different, which can be obviously most advantageous and almost like the pot of gold that you've been saving towards, is to get that final tax concession environment that you're being rewarded for putting so much money away for whatever period of time you have in your retirement savings.
Yeah, exactly, Darin. And I think that that is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, isn't it? So 0% tax. Who doesn't want to pay 0% tax? And, we do have concessional tax rates in the self-managed super fund or in superannuation in general, but we're talking SMSF. We do have a concessional tax rate. So we pay 15%. tax in accumulation phase. Once we're in retirement phase, we have commenced that income stream, that pension, then we can be paying 0% tax on whatever income is supporting to pay that pension out. So this is where that exempt current pension income deduction comes from, and where that percentage or proportionate allocation between your accumulation phase and your retirement phase comes in. And it's not quite as simple as just saying, okay, I'm in retirement phase today, and that's it, I don't pay tax any longer. You know, you do have to make sure that you are following what your trustee says in the SMSF. You're following the governing rules, and you've commenced a pension in accordance to what those rules are. You do have to have some documentation around what that pension is. So, for example, I can't say in October of a financial year that I commenced a pension in July if I didn't actually have the documentation to show that I commenced the pension in July. It's not something that you can just make up. So you do have to follow the bouncing ball, and you do have to make sure those documentation, the documentation is prepared to say that you are in pension. But I think the big thing, Darin, is that you don't actually, in order to get money out of super, you don't actually have to take it in the form of a pension or in the form of a regular income stream payment. You can actually take a lump sum withdrawal out of your accumulation account. So provided you meet that preservation age and condition of release that we were talking about or alluding to earlier, you can actually then take a lump sum money out of accumulation as well. The problem with that, or the downside of that, if you like, is that anything that's still sitting within your accumulation phase is not going to get that 0% tax rate. So you've got to commence the pension and take the income stream payments in order to get that concessional or further concessional tax rate of 0%. If it's sitting in accumulation, you're still actually paying 15% on any of the earnings of the investments that are in that accumulation side. So you can take a lump sum, but if you do that, just be mindful of the tax implications.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Tracey, simply because I know a lot of people are a little bit confused about, I have to start a pension to get my money out. I've got money in accumulation phase, but I can't touch that even though I've reached preservation stage. And it's a common misnomer, and it's obviously not true. You can do that. It may not be, as you pointed out, it may not be the most tax efficient way to do it, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it.
That's right.
And in some ways, it may suit your purposes a little bit better, even though it's not in your best interest from a tax perspective, because once you start a pension, also there are other parameters to take into account. It's not just a matter of, oh, I've got a pension now, I can withdraw any amount of money, or I can start an income stream of any amount as long as I've got a pension. It's not quite that easy, is it?
No, it isn't, Darin. You know, so once you actually commence a pension, and I think I'll come back to the point of transition to retirement pensions in just a minute, because that is also another complication. We say something simple, don't we, in this space, but there's always levels of complexity. So when you actually commence a pension, you are required to take a minimum percentage. So up to age, at 65, it's 4%. Up to 70, I think it's then 5%, and it kind of goes up in scales from there. So you've got to take that minimum, say 4%. If you don't take the minimum pension, then you don't have a pension. So you lose your tax concessions around the 0% tax rate. So you have to be really careful that you do still meet the parameters. If you're in an actual, what we call an account-based pension, so it's a standard pension that anyone can start if they've met preservation age and condition of release, then there is no maximum. So you could take all of your assets out, all of your account balance out of superannuation as a pension payment. You could do that if you wanted to. Why you would do that, I'm not quite sure, but you could. There are those parameters. I think you also need to just be mindful that it is an income stream. So there is some question around, well, can you take just one income stream payment in a year? Does that still meet a pension? Does it need to be multiple? Can you take a pension payment every day of the week if you wanted to? So you could, if you wanted to. Your accountant and administrator might not be very happy with you if you do 365 or 366 pension payments, because there's a little bit more bookwork there, but you can take multiple income streams. So can you have an ATM card and you go to the ATM and just withdraw cash whenever you want to? All of these things are things that you should take into consideration, so that you're not overcomplicating taking a pension out of the fund. I'm not a fan of taking one pension payment in a year. I think that you need to, I personally believe that it's better to take more than one pension payment in a year, just to show that you have got that income stream component coming through. But you can, as long as you've taken the minimum, that's the most important thing.
It's amazing, isn't it, Tracey? We start discussing what is, as you said, on the face of it, a fairly simple topic. But then as we go down the rabbit hole, there are so many of these things to consider, and they are very important because, if your pension is no longer considered a pension, then obviously you're going to be penalised along the way, and you won't be able to enjoy the benefits that you normally would using that strategy. Also, with your reticence to take out just one pension payment per year, I can tell listeners and viewers that it's not the ATO takes a dim view of it. It's just that if you happen to make a mistake, and it's a genuine mistake with your pension drawdown strategy, if you can establish a pattern of behavior, say for example regular payments coming out, that will help your cause to say that, look, it was a genuine mistake. You can see that the history of what I do is I take an amount out every month, 2 months, 3 months or whatever, and I just forgot the last one. And the ATO will be a lot more lenient in assessing that position than they would if it was just one payment per year, because, that's, I suppose, on their radar, it's more susceptible to manipulation. I suppose
100%.
On the other end of the spectrum, we're talking about, do you want to take a payment out 365 times in a year? That's obviously going to create not only problems for your administrator, which they won't like, as you touched on, Tracey, but it also has implications for your own reporting requirements with transfer balance account reporting, or TBAR. That's a topic for another day, but they are considerations certainly that you should think about when you formulate any sort of drawdown strategy as far as regularity of income stream goes.
Absolutely, Darin. And I think that, it's about establishing the authenticity of what you're doing, right? So if you're commencing a pension, you're commencing an income stream, you're wanting to have that income stream paid to you, then make sure that it meets the smell test is my point around that. And I think that, you've got those regular payments, make it a whole lot easier. So totally concur with what you're saying.
Now, we started discussion about talking about the magical age or the magical threshold of reaching age 65. But come 1 July, there was a pretty significant change too about age 60. And of course, this will lead into what you alluded to a little bit before about a transition to retirement pension as well, or income stream. So what's the significance of age 60 come 1 July 2024?
Yeah, preservation age 60. So that's the magical date now, or the magical age preservation. 2 magical ages, Darin, 60 and 65. So preservation age now age 60. And I think that between age 60 and 65, it's meeting that condition. So remember I said there are 2 things. So preservation age and then condition of release. So 65, condition of release, is the fact that you turn 65. Between 60 and 65, we have to still meet a condition of release. And so for most people, that will be retirement or cessation of some workplace activity or arrangement where they are actually retiring, and their intention is that they're retiring. So that doesn't mean that they forever have to retire, Darin, as we know. So they could, you could have the intention at age 60 that you are going to retire from work, and then, you know, months down the track, you're bored out of your brain. You know, you haven't decided to ride off into the sunset, as you put it before. That you still want to keep doing these editorial pieces and podcasts because you miss it so much, and then you come back to work. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. The point is that you still, when you actually do have that retirement or cessation of gainful employment, your intention is that you're going to retire at that point in time. So it's a kind of, comes down to intention, more or less. So I think that between 60 and 65, we still have to meet that that condition of release of retirement, if you like. And it can only, you can, if you have multiple jobs, you could retire from one of them. You don't have to retire from all of them. It's ceasing one position of gainful employment. There is a whole lot of discussion that we could have, and again, maybe another podcast discussion point around what does that look like? Can you actually just physically retire from, one little arbitrary thing that you had going on over here? Is that significant enough to meet the gainful employment change, if you like? So I think we need to be careful of that. But between 60 and 65, there actually has to be another step, is the crucial point that we want to make for today. It's not just a matter of turning 60 and then that's it. Before then, though, if you can't make that retirement, you can't actually do that cessation of gainful employment, you can't do that retirement, then there is this whole concept of transition to retirement. So transition to retirement means that you start to commence an income stream until you are able to meet that actual full condition of release. So it's an in-between. Transition kind of is an obvious thing, isn't it? So it's that in-between. The difference between transition to retirement and normal income stream or normal pension, I guess, is that coming back to that concept of accumulation and retirement phase, that transition to retirement doesn't give you that magical golden egg of 0% tax. So if you have if you commence a transition to retirement income stream or a transition to retirement pension, then you're still under the normal concessional tax situation in the SMSF, i.e. 15%. Or up to 15%. So that's the big difference. The other big difference is that you've got still that minimum amount that you have to take under transition to retirement, but you're only allowed to take a maximum of 10% of your account balance, not 100%. So you've got to be within those parameters as well. So there's more restriction around transition to retirement, but certainly for somebody that wants to cut back maybe on some of their work, or they want to, their circumstances have changed and they want to start to commence or start to take some money out of their super fund under this transition to retirement, they can do that before they can meet that condition of release requirement between 60 and 65. So that just means that we've got a little bit more flexibility to take money out. And I know people that have done that quite successfully, and they're taking a monthly income stream under a transition to retirement pension, and it suits their circumstances quite well.
Yeah, it's certainly something to consider, particularly if you need a little bit of a boost to your income. I don't know what you might be preparing for when you reach age 60, but it's just the option to be there, and it should be something that's considered if you want to start that process of drawing down your money. Because I know a lot of people are impatient about, well, it's been locked away for so long. When do I get my hands on it?
It's my money. I want it.
100%, and it is your money, and it should be yours to use, obviously, as well. Now, we briefly touched on accumulation phase and how you can draw down lump sums from accumulation phase once you've reached preservation age. But the last sort of thing that I wanted to clarify is that taking money out of super doesn't need to be cold, hard cash. So I'm not sure. I know that a lot of people would be worried about, but I've got these assets in super. Do I have to sell down my whole share portfolio, or do I have to, there's a property or something like that, do I have to get rid of it? Do I have to liquidate all of those things before I start drawing down? And simple answer is no, you don't, do you?
Yeah, that's right, Darin. So provided you take, so if you are doing just a straight income stream or a straight pension, the short answer is yes, you do have to sell. You have to, let's just clarify that a little bit further. You don't have to sell the asset provided you've got enough cash in the fund to pay the pension payment. So if you've got enough cash, because a pension payment or an income stream payment has to be cash. You can't do an in specie or an asset transfer to meet your pension payment requirements. If you were taking a lump sum out of accumulation, you can absolutely transfer an asset out of super. And I've had a number of situations over the years where clients have had a share portfolio, like you've suggested, and they didn't want to actually liquidate completely that share portfolio. So we did a transfer of asset out of the super fund, being that parcel of shares. I've also had situations where there was property in the fund, and it was a bit of a sea change, if you like, or a tree change concept of property, where they had bought that property inside of the SMSF many, many years ago, and they now wanted to live in the property. You can't just live in a property that is owned by the SMSF. So the strategy was to be able to transfer that property out of the SMSF into their individual names, and they could hold on to the property. Now, obviously, as I said before, with a lump sum payment out of accumulation, we don't have that 0% tax rate on the sale of that asset out of a super fund. So there is capital gains tax to consider, and stamp duty, depending on which state you're in as well. So you've got to take into consideration the cost of doing that strategy, but certainly you can take an in specie payment out of a super fund, as long as it's for a lump sum withdrawal, not for a pension payment.
Yeah. Well, we said that we'd keep it simple today, so I think we've pretty much run out of time to discuss anything further. Of course, we could talk about this for the rest of the day, really, if we want to. But I just wanted to say that to the listeners and the viewers out there, if you like what we talked about, this topic will be discussed in a lot more depth and a lot more detail at the SMSF Trustee Empowerment Day, which we will be hosting in September. We will be holding the Sydney leg on the 17th of September and the Melbourne leg on the 19th of September. And if you are watching this as a video, then you can have a look on screen now, because the details you can reference will be there. And we encourage you all to register and come along and forget about me, but see Tracey in person. That would be really good. It's worthwhile, I can tell you.
Really looking forward to talking about getting money out of super. And Darin, it's a challenge for me to keep it to a 1 hour session, but I will do my best to do that. I promise you I'll keep it to 1 hour at the Trustee Empowerment Day, because there are so many things that we can talk about in terms of getting money out. And we've literally just touched on a couple today, being the preservation age and condition of release. But there's lots of different combinations of strategies that you can do. And it's not just one or the other. It's not just an and or an or, it is a combination of, lump sum and income stream. And what if I want to take only the minimum, but I actually want to get more money out? What do I do then? How do I actually make sure I'm getting the tax element of all of this right? There's so many things that we just can, stack all together in order to get, a great outcome for the members of an SMSF. And what's right for you may not be right for me, and vice versa. So it's about understanding and educating yourself. If you're a member or a trustee of a super fund, it's about educating yourself on what is possible. Can you do it? Is what the Trustee Empowerment and the podcast is all about. Should you do it? Well, that's a whole different story, isn't it? That's where you seek the personal advice to know whether you should do it for yourself. But can you do it? We can certainly help you with that process.
Didn't Peter Costello dub his changes the simpler super reforms? I'm sorry, there's nothing simple about super. As you can see, even the simplest, what would appear to be the simplest concept, comes with a hell of a lot of stuff that you've got to take into account.
Absolutely,
but anyway,
Darin. And I think that you almost need a flow chart, don't you? You need to, a yes or no flow chart decision-making matrix to be able to work through what is supposed to be simple.
Yeah, unfortunately, that flow chart might end up spanning the width of the country with a lot of the strategies that sometimes need to be taken into account. But anyway, we will continue to discuss these issues and these topics in subsequent podcasts. So I'd just like to thank you for your company, for the listeners and the viewers out there. And of course, thank you, Tracey, for joining me and being a part of the podcast series. Just one last reminder, if you are enjoying our content on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and smash that like button so that we can get our matrix up. But apart from that, we hope you've enjoyed it. There will be more episodes, obviously, to follow after this. But thanks for your company, and we'll see you next time on the Trusted Trustee podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Darin.